Good evening, everybody. We are reconvening our meeting here after an executive session earlier, and we may actually go back into executive session when we're through to finish up some of the activity in that earlier executive session. But in any event, we're here to consider how to proceed with the Rockport Public Library project. Last evening, we went through our options, and I think we identified 4 options last evening, which, if I'm remembering them correctly, were rescope and rebid, rescope and negotiate, find somebody who will do the project as currently scoped and within budget, or walk away. And I think the board pretty well agreed that option 4 was something that we didn't want to consider for the many reasons that we cited last night. So, at this point, we have to decide which of the other options we want to pursue. Yes,
I did some work on option 2 today,
option 2, which is,
which is the rescope and find someone to negotiate with.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you, I did this carefully, and that was because I didn't consult legal counsel before I did it to make sure that I was not doing anything that would get any of us in trouble with the people who had bid. So I did not intentionally go to one of the people who bid, not because that might not be an option, but because I wanted to steer clear of anything that might cause trouble. But I did go and talk to one reputable, well-regarded firm locally today and laid out where we were on 4 options to see would they even be willing to, this option 2, and laid it out for them. And they said they would be willing to do it. The challenge is they could not put it on their schedule until 2020 right now. Okay? Wait a second. All right, so given that, I then called over to, because now we have to think about I'm just trying to give you all the options, okay? And this is not as well prepared as I'd like, but we tried to do this today, which is reach out. Is there anybody who we could negotiate with? Obviously, the 3 that we had bid know the project the best because they know the documents the best, but I was worried about reaching out to them, and that was just for legal reasons, and I didn't know what the parameters were, so I stayed away from it. So then, okay, what happens if we talk about a 2020 start? Okay, the first thing I did was circle back to the big bond, like we discussed last night, the mark-to-market of understanding the bond parameters. Speaking with Megan and Rick this afternoon, the math goes something like this. Our dates, as we mentioned, are 15% or $225,000 by 11/23/19. Megan informed me today that $30,000 of that money is already spent, okay? 60% by 5/23/20, 100% by 11/23/20. Here is the next question, obviously, is what are the ramifications if we don't spend the money by those dates as laid out, okay? And she did speak with bond counsel, and now I am repeating the notes that I got from Megan, which is it would require hiring a rebate specialist, which would cost you about $3,000 to $4,000. The bond interest rate on the 225 would be a fee. Please keep in mind that's a fixed rate bond at 1.82%. Okay, and that would be the bond interest rate versus the interest income. So my understanding, and again, this would need to be fleshed out further, but this is to get you the data points, to get you started. My understanding is it would be versus the interest income. So obviously the cost to the town would be that net gap on the bond interest. Basically, the people who have the bond still want to basically get paid. It's as simple as that. So you would have to do the 225. And then the important thing, a couple of other data points on this that are worth considering is to get to the 15% spend, your contractor can pay deposits for suppliers, for supplies and vendors. Okay, so that does give you some other things to think about hitting that 11/23 date. And then Megan's comment was, please be reminded that this does not look good for us in front of other bond financing if we do this. The offset to that, remember, is as you push this further down, you're going to be working against inflation. So this was just in the best attempt to give you more thoughts on option 2 that I didn't have this data to share with you last night.
We're still hired as your honest rep. And what Bettina's
Right.
done is make every effort to
Make
meet
sure.
that role.
Yep,
And that's why we've gone down this approach. So it's just to give you more
more,
information.
more data, because I think you need more notes at this point.
Okay,
Sorry.
does anybody have any questions about,
And please don't ask me a lot of hard questions, because I think I just told you absolutely everything I have on that topic, sorry.
okay.
I guess I'd be curious, just to fill out the information, what the foundation might think of that, if we had to push it back, John or Denise?
Nobody wants to.
Don't
comment.
everybody jump to the podium at once.
You should go to the podium, though.
It was our obligation to do this then, wasn't it? Sorry.
I mean, you're obviously sort of the third or fourth leg of that stool.
So the question is,
Well, Bettina says, under rescoping this, they found someone they could talk to, but they couldn't start construction until 2020.
oh, okay. Well, I guess, not having anticipated this question, off the top of my head, I can tell you that having a little more time never hurts a fundraising effort. So there is that aspect. You're giving us more time to finish it. On the other hand, we do have a responsibility to the donors that have already, contributed to the library. We already have pledges in hand that, that there was a plan. So we're changing that plan if we move the date back. So, yeah, and it just tends to drag everything out. So as much as it gives you more time, it also hurts because, one of the things we've had going in our favor all along is, hey, we're going to build this, it's going to happen, you're going to see a building, soon. So there, I'm just giving you both sides of the argument. Denise, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I might just add Denise Munger. We've got a lot of momentum coming into the summer. We've got events planned. We're trying to generate a lot of excitement among some of our key target donors. And if this construction project is pushed off to 2020 with all sort of the attendant uncertainty about what the costs look like at that point in terms of inflation, I don't think we're going to see any activity from our significant donors this summer if that's the case. So we'll lose the momentum we have. Who knows what happens after that? But I think it could be very harmful to our fundraising efforts.
Okay. Thank you both. Anybody have any questions? And I'm assuming from what you told us, Bettina, that you hadn't really gotten into talking about a budget with this particular firm.
Nope.
Okay.
Did I mention?
Yeah,
The-
I'm
the
just double
contractor
checking.
is aware of the project.
Yep.
He has the drawings.
Yep.
He was potentially one of the bidders, not one of the ones that dropped out, but one of the bidders.
Right.
And he would still need time to review it. He would still need we would need time to work on scope changes. If the architect is even interested in entertaining scope changes, which is another obstacle that would have to be
Yep.
approached. So our role here is still as your owner's rep, and we take that role very seriously, which is why Bettina and I worked on getting this information for you. Is it preferable information? That's for you to determine.
Right. Well, any information is good, so appreciate that. So where does the board want to go with this? Do we have any other questions about the, so,
Left off right now. Sorry.
I also don't like the idea of 2020 because, this town has been so divided over this issue for so long, and we need momentum now to go forward. And a 2020 start is just more division, more controversy over parking and everything else that's been decided.
Yeah, I agree with that, now that I think about it. Clearly, there've been delays along the way, it's been a struggle. It just seems like every time there's a delay, just allows more things to bubble to the surface. Some people may say that's a good thing, but I don't agree. I think I think that's just too far in the future with too many uncertainties. I'd be uncomfortable with that.
Any comments from anybody else? So that was option 2. I'm trying to number the options here so that I can remember which ones are which. How about, do we want to talk about option 1, which was rescope and send it back out to bid again? Because that was one thing that we had talked about, the possibility of doing, is working with the owner's rep and the architect to go through the specs and find some things that we could perhaps shift to alternates rather than in the base bid, and to get the scope of the project a little bit smaller, and then put it out to bid again to see if we get bids that are within the budget. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll rephrase what you folks said last night about that. You didn't think we would see a lot of action on a rebid based on what had transpired with this bid this first time around.
The timeframe for that would be extraordinary, actually. No offense to you, Jeffrey, sir, but it would take time. And to go out to rebid would take time. And getting bidders who have somewhat of a failed trust in the system in Rockport would be difficult. So it's really not a viable option, because the intent of the time frame that we have, and remember, any days we can gain on that time frame is beneficial to this project. The intent is to get closed in by the winter, so that the winter months could be spent on the inside of the building continuing to finish, and you'd lose that benefit. So you would be shut down on this project as the building is concerned for a good 4 to 5 months.
I'm ready to make a motion anytime you are, Mr. Chairman.
I'll entertain a motion whenever there is a motion to be made.
I move that we go forward with accepting a resignation from Phi Builders as our owner's representative, entering into a letter of intent to go forward with Phi Builders as our general contractor, and thirdly, to negotiate a mutually acceptable construction contract with Phi Builders.
I'll
Second.
second that.
We have a motion and have a second from, I'll give it to Doug. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Quick discussion. The assumption would be the next motion will likely be to have the select board find a new owner's rep immediately.
Yes, yes.
That would follow.
Next logical step.
follow that.
The question there would be, do we need an owner's rep or do we need a clerk in the works? And I'm not terribly clear on the difference.
Before they resign, let's,
I'll explain to you the difference, sir. An owner's rep in the role that we've handled is basically, it's a more senior role, and the experience that we brought to the table has led us to get a project that's been bid and is a very solid and concise project that left no interpretation for change orders. A clerk of the works is someone that
You
is...
do realize if you get this job, you can't change order shit.
So now that,
You do realize.
And I can guarantee you that that's what we present to you today. It's considered a guaranteed maximum price, and there are no change orders. And Bettina stands behind me on that. That's what we presented to you.
so Bettina,
But a clerk of the works is really somebody that monitors the project. He's the watchdog of the project. He's the eyes of the architect and the owner. He reports back to the architect of the progress and the owner, if the owner so chooses, directly from the clerk of the works or through the architect, whatever system is set up. And he is just there to advise on what work is being done, if it's in conformance with the plans and specifications and the intent of the project, and he's there to make sure that the project is being built in the best interest of the town. That is exactly what we did, our role was. Our role was a little bit more standard in that we had more, it's like being an auxiliary police officer with no arresting skills and a real police officer. Our role was more of a real police officer where we could make decisions and standards for the contractor because of our experience level. You can get a clerk of the works for a third of the price. That's up to your negotiating skills. But I can tell you that a clerk of the works is standard. What you got with us was a little bit more than standard, simply because we were part of the design development and the creation of the construction documents, which is not something a clerk of the works standard would do.
So the question is, would a clerk of the works be the appropriate position for us to seek at this point?
If you are considering option 3, with all due respect, I would prefer that we don't tell you which direction to go on clerk of the works versus owner's rep.
Yeah, and I think that.
Is that okay?
Exactly what I was gonna say.
And,
Is that okay?
and I, yes, and I appreciate Charlie's industry experience, which I, really, and obviously Bettina's, which I have a lot of respect in. From a legal perspective, I have a little different view of those definitions. And I think that all of those are things that need to be discussed under 1 MRSA Section 405-6C, which allows us to talk about contracts relating to real and personal property in executive session. And I think that's the appropriate place where we need to talk about all of these contracts.
At this point, it wouldn't be beneficial for us to advise you on that. That's something you need to come up with.
Thank you. Jeff?
I would feel better about voting for the motion if the maximum price and the scope were included in the verbiage of the motion.
The scope, meaning,
The library building, the
That's
parking,
design.
the 2.97, da-da-da, and change. Because there's no discussion here yet on stream work and intersection work.
okay.
I've given our estimate to Rick today.
So I would, okay, can I have my motion back?
Do we want to do it as two separate motions? Is that easier?
Well, here, I can do.
You want to withdraw the second and do the,
Okay, yeah, let me withdraw the first one, but that's, don't mark out your stuff because it's gonna look a lot like
Wait a
that.
minute, that's your shop.
Yeah, Rick,
Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going from memory. The estimate was the 225 for the intersection and 30,000 for the stream work?
That's
But
correct,
when-
sir.
And
That's
then,
a separate motion.
but,
Yeah,
okay.
that's not
But then
what we're
the,
talking
but
about.
the parking
Hang on a
would be
minute.
included in that 2.7.
The parking's included in the
In the
3.5,
3.5.
and whatever is not covered as the, in the 3.5 will be absorbed by the budget of the building. We will accept it.
Okay.
so do we want to, I mean, do we want a motion with their number in it, or do we want a not to exceed motion for the?
Yeah, see, I mean, their number was originally 2.97 for the building.
Right.
2971344.
And that is what you gave us in the paper,
Yes, ma'am.
paper.
2.971344.
There was a 2 in there.
2.971344.
And the parking, I mean, I'm not sure exactly
He said he did,
how the parking shakes out, which is why I said a mutually acceptable contract. And so I think that we have some terms that we need to negotiate. And so I can't really sit here and say exactly, a mutually acceptable contract means that it's within our budget of,
Well, can we just deal with the building right now, just using their 2.971344, including the parking?
see, that's where the rub is. I
Yeah,
don't think
they're-
that the
they're not saying that
2.97
goes-
blah, blah,
that's
blah
right.
is including the parking.
no, it's not.
it is
It's
not.
It's,
Oh,
So,
it
see,
doesn't
that's
include
where-
the parking.
That's where it gets a little tricky. And that's why I said a mutually acceptable contract.
That's where Jeff is saying he wants a little more
no.
certainty, I think.
my first certainty was to state the 2.9 and change.
That's what,
Okay.
okay.
The other part of it was that the FI said they would include the parking and make it work within the 3.5 million max. But that needs to be vetted out in a formal statement somehow, which could almost sound just like what I just said.
That'll work.
But include that so that we have on record
Okay.
what we're signing up for and for how much.
Okay, give me your number again, 2.97.
2.971344. It's actually .55, but I'll accept the 55 cents.
You'll get your coffee.
For your trouble.
We've given enough.
2,971, oh, wait a minute.
2.971, $2,971,344, all in for the drawings as they were bid.
That's the base bid for the
As
building.
drawings
Yes,
and
sir.
specs, as drawings and specs, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'll try this again. Okay,
And then,
I move that, number one, we go forward accepting a resignation from Five Builders as our owner's rep. 2, that we enter into a letter of intent to go forward with Five Builders as our general contractors. 3, that we negotiate with Five Builders a mutually acceptable construction contract with a price for the library building not to exceed $2,973,444.
And
1344.
55 cents.
1344, thank you, everybody. In accordance with the drawings and specifications that were sent out to bid,
Yes, ma'am.
and with the parking being within the $3.5 million total budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are we,
Discussion.
discussion?
All right. The process that got us here is not pretty, was not pretty. In the spirit of what is best for the town of Rockport's taxpayers and this project, I will support this path forward. If I had to do it all over again many years ago, it would be different, just from a process standpoint. It's been a long, tough road. I'm here not to put a roadblock in the process, but my hope is this is the end of library drama going forward, because we just got through parking. Now we had this bump. Whatever drama mitigation needs to occur between now and the time we have a ribbon-cutting ceremony, my expectation is that things are brought forward, they're dealt with appropriately, they're dealt with collaboratively, and in the best interest of the town. Delaying this project, that's $500,000 right there, just to go a year, right, wrong, or indifferent, between inflation, expenses on bond payments, and that type of thing. We're trying to get an awful lot of library for 2.9 and change. Anyways, I've said what I've had to say.
Any further discussion?
I mean, the only thing I would say is that we, in the last 10 months now, it was 9 months when we talked about it a little bit ago, but the foundation, you guys, the library board, the manager, and the public, and we have accomplished a fair amount compared to the previous years. And it hasn't been easy, but we are going forward, one little speed bump at a time. And we will have something on that lot up there in due time. And thank you, everyone, and you guys.
Any further discussion? If not, does everybody understand the motion? Okay, then all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries with a 5-0 vote. Do we have any further,
We got it.
do we have any further business we want to attend to under this agenda item, which is consideration of how to proceed?
Yeah, can someone clarify for me though now, how we're gonna manage the intersection and stream portion of the
Yes.
contracts with them?
We need to
We haven't
resolve
even
that.
voted
Yeah,
on
that'll be worded, it worked out in the contract.
Yep.
Okay.
But as far as what the estimates you gave for being able to do the intersection work was meeting our budget, which was 225, and the stream work, which was 30,000.
We should motion and capture.
Well, that, yeah, but I think Deborah pointed that, and I think rightly so, that we need some sort of a motion
Right.
to also engage them to do the intersection and the stream.
Well, perhaps a motion to include that in the letter of intent would be proper.
While that's being crafted, do you want to entertain Bill's question, perhaps?
Bill, did you have a, I didn't see the hand waving out there.
Sorry.
At some point, I'd like you to circle back again to the idea of either a clerk of the works or an owner's representative and clear that up tonight, as well as what is your intent with the building committee? And what scope do you want to have the building committee take now in regards to a new clerk of the works or owner's representative? Keeping in mind, the building committee is not a technical, construction-oriented group.
Right.
We were intended to oversee change orders and things like that, which seem to be going to be very few and far between, considering the statements that have been made here so far tonight.
But there's still a lot, I agree with you, but there's still a lot of value that committee's going to have in terms of picking out and making choices of details from the citizens, for the citizens.
And we have, crafting the agenda for the May 13th Select Board meeting, there is an agenda item on there as to what the role of the building committee is going to be
Yeah.
moving forward. So we will discuss it at that meeting. I know you said you were away that night.
What would you like to be in charge of? You're going to be away, so.
I'll take care of the water bottles, all right?
So yeah, and I agree with Doug that I think the building committee still has a central role to play in this, as a partner with the select board and with our contractor and with whatever we do as a clerk of the works or owner's representative. So,
Can I take the first one?
yeah,
I motion that the select board approve the engagement of the intersection work and the stream work not to exceed the $225,000 and not to exceed the $30,000 respectively, as presented to Rick earlier today in a mutually agreeable contract arrangement.
with, you don't want to mention Phi?
I did.
Oh, okay, I guess I didn't hear that.
Thank-
Well, I think
Okay,
that
the
motion
motion's
is.
been made. Do we have a
yeah.
second yet?
Second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that's fine, but I haven't seen those numbers,
Yeah,
and
we can't.
so.
I said, yeah,
Can I ask a question, sir? Is it out of line for me too?
You can ask a question, yep. No, you're
need to
there.
go to that
You're
mic, or
there.
is
No,
this
you
mic
can, you're fine.
acceptable? And I'll gladly get up, I don't mind.
No, no,
I
no.
enjoy a camera. But that being said, we have steadfast agreed, and we guarantee the town that we will build this building for 2.971344. There are plenty of unknowns, and we will do it in our best interest, in our good faith in wanting to work with the town, as we have represented in the last 10 months. The confidence level from the town to us, I think, is high. However, the verbiage that you used of not to exceed the 225 and the 30,000 for the intersection and parking is something I'm uncomfortable agreeing,
No,
not the
stream,
parking, the
stream.
stream, I apologize,
Stream.
correction. The
You got the
intersection
parking.
and the stream, we have the parking, is something I'm somewhat uncomfortable with agreeing to. We
Right
will
now.
work in your best interest to make it zero, but that is not something I can guarantee, sir,
Right now.
right at this point in time.
all right, but I thought I heard that you had provided the estimates and the quotes to Rick earlier today.
I reviewed the drawings, and I'm comfortable in all the drawings I've reviewed, whether it be it the building or the parking, I'm comfortable telling you there will be no change orders. I cannot guarantee you the same with the intersection or the stream.
We haven't
I'm
done,
going
we
to-
haven't spent as much time on those two pieces.
I can guarantee you
Let
I'm
me
going to work
retract and
forward.
modify my motion.
Thank you, sir.
I motion that the town of Rockport enter an agreement with Phi to contract to do stream repair work and intersection work with a targeted amount being 225 for the intersection, that's 1,000,
Yeah, 225,000.
okay, and 30,000 for the stream work
That's fine.
in a mutually agreeable contract arrangement.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on that particular issue. Any discussion on that?
So the concept basically here is that in this case, there could be change orders. Well, because we haven't made a contract yet, but.
Charlie and Phi have spent a lot of time over the last 10 months. Charlie will tell you, he's built the library
Yeah, I'm not
So,
referencing the
but wait
building.
a second, the only reason that we're not as confident right now in committing to the same verbiage on the intersection and the stream is
understand.
we have not spent as much time. So we're well aware of the commitment that we've made on the parking and the building. We just aren't
Right,
as,
and
we
There
have,
may
are
be a
not at
change
the same
order
level.
on these two.
I
Okay.
get that, so it's
And we will get there, we are not there right now, and I'm not trying to cause any trouble, but
Well, I think the wording of the motion is appropriate.
I just did the targets.
And,
That's
and I think, some comfort, we should have some comfort level with that, because those items on the bids actually came
Yeah.
in fairly close to
They did.
our
Yeah.
budget items.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I
that's
think that
true, yeah.
that we have a little bit of comfort level there, that those jobs can be done for around the target numbers. Is there gonna be a little bit of wiggle room one way or the other? I mean, before we negotiate a contract and sign a contract, you guys will have a little more time to do a little more work on that.
We'll be able
and,
to do much better on
you
that
know,
by then.
who knows, maybe we'll find some savings there or whatever. And I just want to say that I know that we've said there's zero, I am not going to hold you to zero change orders on any of this stuff. And the reason for that is that we don't know, who knows that as the building is spec'd out, maybe some particular material, when you get down to it in 9 months, is not available. You can't get it for some reason. I don't know what it might be, but things can happen. What I do take at your word is that you're not to exceed price. That doesn't mean there might not be a change order that say, well, this particular thing is gonna go down $10,000 and this particular thing is gonna go up $10,000. Those are change orders, and I'd be shocked if we didn't have at least something like that.
I think we're
I
referring to the
appreciate-
financial impact of change
Right,
orders.
I think, and
Right.
I appreciate that, but I just wanna,
And
I
creating
wanna make
a-
that clear.
So I had a motion out there.
Yep,
Did you
motion
make that?
has been seconded, I believe. Is there any further discussion on that motion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's a 5-0 vote.
A third one. I'll make a motion that the town enter into a new agreement with a new owner's rep as soon as possible.
Owner's rep or clerk of the works?
I'm going with owner's rep
I-
verbiage.
And Mark just seconded it.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. We do have a comment from Denise here, and I want to hear that.
I just want to, we do have an architect here, and it is typical when you have an architect to have them sort of overseeing the project. I mean, it's sort of, it might be a little bit of a belt and suspenders approach to have an owner's rep, a clerk of the works, and an architect. In the bit of research I've done, is a common arrangement. I'll just
We-
leave it at
Yeah,
that.
thanks. Yeah, we need to discuss it, and I have thoroughly reviewed the owner's rep contract and the architect contract, and as I said, I think we need to discuss it further in executive session, which we can do with respect to such contracts. But the motion is to enter into a contract with an owner's rep.
Yeah, and I,
Or clerk of the works.
I didn't say
Do you want
or.
to say, you said owner's rep?
Motion is for owner's rep,
Okay.
and it has been seconded, so that motion is on the floor.
Yeah, I can withdraw that, can't I?
You could say, or clerk of the works.
Let us vote it down.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm going to vote in favor of it.
I guess for me, I need to understand a little bit more what our needs are.
I think it has to come back to you with what the options are and have you guys, go ahead.
Throw it out there for vote and kill it.
Blanket motion.
Make it easy.
Withdraw it.
Well, I mean, is there any more discussion?
Okay, well, discussion that I will have is that I talk to people who I have a lot of confidence in this area, and I think that these terms are thrown around very loosely, and they're thrown around loosely in municipal government, they're thrown around loosely in the industry, and really they're used quite interchangeably. I really don't care if you call it an owner's rep or a clerk of the works, although clerk of the works is really sort of the old-time wording for it. An owner's rep is whatever you make an owner's rep by contract, and I think it should be an owner's rep.
Yes. Trying to keep my eyes going all over the place here.
First of all, I really do want to thank the Select Board and certainly FI for enabling this project to move forward. It's immensely, Joan Welsh, Rockport Foundation. it's immensely important to us as a foundation to keep the momentum going, because we've had this hiatus for a while. We're gearing up for the summer, so first of all, I want to thank you. I also would suggest this is a different time than we were at the beginning of this project. We have a contractor now that intimately knows and has served as the owner's rep. So it's a very different situation than what we had 10 months ago. Secondly, we have an architect that is capable and needs to probably be impressed that he needs to keep a sharp eye on things, but we also have a building committee now. So I think there are things in place that take the place of an owner's rep, given a very different scenario than what we had at the beginning of this project. That's just my thought.
Thank you, Joan, but I really think that you need an owner's rep, and I think you need an owner's rep because you need to, no offense to you guys, I have a huge, high level of confidence in your integrity, but to protect the town and the taxpayers, there needs to be somebody who is overseeing that process. And if for no other reason, we rejected bids that were high bidders, and we need to make sure that what you guys are building is pursuant to those drawings and specifications, and we need to show that we're not giving you some special deal and letting you cut corners. And so it's very important, I think, for the transparency in this process to have an owner's rep. What the terms and conditions and the scope of that is and where the architect comes in respect to all that is something that I would like to discuss in executive session.
I think really the big difference that's going to matter to people is not so much the name, the owner's representative or clerk of the works, but rather how much additional money this is going to add to the soft costs. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. Do you need an owner's representative who we were prepared to pay for the whole project, $116,000, or can you hire a local builder who is very competent to keep an eye on things for, $40,000 for the remainder part of the project or something? I think that's really what people are going to be interested in.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can I ask Deb a question? Deb, in your mind, are you thinking that a clerk of the works typically can work for the town? We could hire a clerk of the works, or the clerk of the works could be hired by the architect.
Right.
And the owner's rep will never work for the architect.
That's correct.
The owner's rep is
That's correct.
always there representing
And I
us.
think this person needs to be
That's
our
the-
representative, not a member of the building team, not part of the architect's team. It's our representative
agree.
with only one interest at heart, and that is the taxpayers of this town.
Correct. It's
And
another
that's
layer.
more typically when an owner's rep.
It is an owner's rep. I don't like the term clerk of the works. It's an owner's rep. The owner's rep's purpose is to watch out for the taxpayers of the town of Rockport, the financial aspect, add another layer of protection for the constituents, and make sure that things all go by plan. So my motion stands.
And I think, as you said, I mean, we can negotiate a contract with whatever terms we like. And it may be at this point, because of all the work that we've done, that an owner's rep, the amount of time and the amount of hours that are needed may be considerably less than they might be in a project.
We
that's-
rescope the
Right,
whole.
and keep in mind, in the owner's rep contract that we have right now, there's a lot of record keeping, there's a lot of other stuff, which we may not need that kind of stuff, that kind of overhead. So this is all stuff that we need to discuss.
And I think, the comments of the chairman of the building committee, I think, are very prescient too, that they want to have somebody who has the expertise to
Right.
interface with them on
Right.
this project.
Absolutely.
So I think that's
Could
key.
you repeat the motion, please, Jeff?
I think you're gonna have to get Linda to do that.
Linda, would you?
I want to echo what Deb just said. There was a lot of paper keeping, and we've already seen that, is looking at the bills that come in and allocating them to the proper cost center or location, however you want to term that, again, it's over and above what the building committee could probably do, but somebody that understands the contract and where the money is coming from and going to is important. That was something that the owner's rep, in this case, was going to be doing and bringing these bills, particularly if there were changes, overages, or underage, to the building committee. So, just want to echo what Deb's already said here.
All right, so, shall I repeat my motion?
Please.
All right. I can do it. I motion that the town of Rockport identify and enter into an agreement, contractual agreement with a new owner's representative for this project.
Yep.
Thank you.
And it was already seconded. So is there any further discussion on that motion? Do we want to include a time frame at all, or? is it
As
just
soon as possible.
As soon as possible? I think that was in the motion originally, yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed?
Oh, we need to do one more. We need to do one more. We've got to formally accept their resignation.
That was in the motion.
Oh, that was in my
You
motion.
already did that?
First motion.
Yeah.
Perfect, sorry.
First, yeah.
Because that had to be done first before we did anything else.
We have a letter. What's the song? They wrote me a letter.
Thank you. I will read the letter. It's to Mr. Richard Bates, Town Manager, Town of Rockport, Maine. Dear Rick, on behalf of Phi Builders and Architects, I submit our resignation from the role of owner's representative for the Rockport Library Project. This resignation is effective May 1st, 2019 at 8 p.m. We got them for 19 more minutes.
Get your questions in
We
now.
billed for it too, by the way.
They charge by the hour.
Let me continue. We committed our best efforts to our town over the past months and hope our contributions were of value. We will assist the town, select board, foundation, and committees to the full extent allowed through this transition. Respectfully, Bettina Dalton, owner, Phi Builders and Architects. And indeed, I will second the fact that I know for a fact you have committed your best efforts, and personally, I appreciate that.
Please keep in mind, there's one role for the owner's rep that you need to stay on as soon as possible, and I'll keep that role as your contractor until that owner's rep starts, and that's dealing with the neighbors. I'm going to create, or I have a list already created in my office of all the emails and phone numbers. I'll turn that over to Rick, but you will need to keep the neighbors involved. I won't have time for it, unfortunately.
Beth, did you hear that?
We need to,
Is she here?
Oh, yeah.
Where's Beth?
Jeff?
okay, we need to get a transition document from you of outstanding actions as an owner's rep. Everything you have in the hopper, currently active, including neighbors, whatever it might be, just do the download and present it to Rick.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, where this letter is addressed to me, I would just like to say thank you. You got us through the really difficult part of this process. You've been very, very helpful in getting us to where we are. We couldn't have done it without Phi Architects and Design, Builders and Design, Architects. You know, you did a lot of work for us, and I really appreciate the effort that you put in.
you.
And I look forward to working with you into the future and getting this library built, for Pete's sakes.
And if there's a cocktail party that night, I got some wine that we can drink. We got this. And there have been nights I'm glad I own the winery, guys. Okay?
When do we want that transition
I
document?
vote for that, we start to have some fun with this.
Yes.
Jeff is asking about the timing of the transition document. What's a reasonable time for you folks to provide that?
Can you give us till Friday morning?
Yeah, give us till
Does
Friday
that'll give us
morning,
tomorrow in
please.
the office?
Let's say before noon on Friday, if that's fair enough, if it's okay with you, sir?
I think that's fine, and I think,
The reason I ask is because there may be people that may be interested in the role that will want to see the scope of work and the outstanding items. And that may be a part of the conversation.
And please know, if there's anybody that needs questions about where we're at, they can call us at any time, and we are still working in the best interest of
You're
the
our
town.
clients.
You're a client, no matter what side of the fence we're on. You're our client, and we take that seriously.
Yep.
okay. Do we want to,
I'll be turning a schedule over to Rick early next week, and I can assure you that my intent is to have activity on that site next week.
Will you do it?
It's my intent. Yeah, I didn't tell you about that, by the way.
You know, we are ahead of schedule, too. Instead of making a decision on May 13th, we made a decision on May 1st.
Those days will become very valuable.
Chalk
to
that
us.
one up.
well, and actually,
Under budget.
I actually have an item on the May 13th agenda to approve a contract. So
Yes,
So we should, by then, we
yes.
should have the contract negotiated
Yes,
and,
yep.
and we should be ready to act on
Are
that.
we ready for,
So do we want to go into executive session to discuss the owner's rep? Okay.
I may
We'll have
move,
to do two separate executive sessions.
okay,
do you want me to do the C one?
sure.
So which one are you going to do first?
The C.
Which is, I can't remember which one is which. The-
C is contracts.
Okay.
C as in contracts.
I move we go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 4056C
To discuss.
to discuss
Contracts
contracts relating to real and personal property of the town.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
I need to run out to my car for a minute. I'll be right back.
Yeah.